Hello everybody, Tony Beers here again. Now, I've noticed that recently there are a ton of superhero movies out lately, which made me think, what if these movies were made during the golden age of Hollywood? Like, from the 1930s to maybe the late 50s. Who would star in these movies? In this video, I'm going to give my picks of who I think should star as superheroes if these movies were made in the golden age of Hollywood. Let's start off with Batman. My pick to play Batman would be Cary Grant. Cary Grant usually plays suave, sophisticated characters, which would be perfect to play Bruce Wayne. And he has also done action movies such as North by Northwest, which also would be perfect to be Batman. Now, let's move on to Iron Man. Now, if they made an Iron Man movie around the 40s, early 50s, I would choose Clark Gable to play Tony Stark / Iron Man. Clark Gable is also known for playing these suave, sophisticated characters, which would be perfect for Tony Stark. Plus, he looks exactly like Tony Stark as he appeared in the early Iron Man comics. Now, let's move on to Nick Fury. My pick to play Nick Fury would be John Wayne. Now, a lot of people would say, well, John Wayne, he mostly does westerns. He's not quite right for Nick Fury. But you have to remember that John Wayne also made a lot of war movies, which is what Nick Fury started off as, is a World War II hero. So I think John Wayne would be perfect to play Nick Fury. Now let's move on to some villains. Now let's talk about Lex Luthor. I believe that Telly Savalas would be perfect for Lex Luthor. Also, I've heard that Bruce Timm has said himself that the design for Lex Luthor in the Superman animated series was based off of Telly Savalas. So that would make Telly Savalas perfect to play Lex Luthor. Now let's move on to the Red Skull. I think that Peter Cushing will be perfect to play the Red Skull. Peter Cushing is probably best known as Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars: A New Hope, and he played this character so sinister and so evil. He would be perfect to play the Red Skull. Now let's move on to an entire team. Who would be cast in a 50s era Fantastic Four movie? Let's start off with Mr. Fantastic himself. I think that Basil Rathbone would be perfect to play Mr. Fantastic. He's probably best known for playing the part of Sherlock Holmes, a genius detective. Basil Rathbone has this intelligence about him which is perfect for Reed Richards. Now let's move on to Sue Richards, the Invisible Woman. Now, who should play Marvel's blonde bombshell? I think that Marilyn Monroe would be perfect to play Susan Richards. In most of the roles she's played, Marilyn Monroe has been the hot, yet very nice and very strong woman, and she would be perfect to play Sue Richards. Next, let's move on to Sue's brother, Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. So who should play Johnny Storm, this hot-headed, arrogant, fun-loving bad boy? I think James Dean would be perfect to play Johnny Storm. Now, lastly, who should play the ever-loving blue-eyed thing? And I think that Claude Akins would be good for this part. He's a very broad guy. He has tough voice play Thing, so I think he'd be perfect for Thing. And who should play the Fantastic Four's greatest villain and one of my personal favorite villains of all time, Doctor Doom? I think Doctor Doom should be played by Bela Lugosi. Bela was born in Hungary, which gives him a very unique foreign accent, and with Bela Lugosi's accent, it would be easy to believe that he could be from the fictional country of Latveria. Also, the man was Dracula, okay? If he is a good enough actor to play Dracula, he's definitely good enough to play Doctor Doom. Now let's move on to the Fantastic Four's sometimes villain, sometimes ally, Namor the Submariner. Now for this one, I chose an actor who's the only one on my list that has not yet passed away. I choose Leonard Nimoy. He'd be perfect for the role if the movie was made back in the early 60s. Now let's move on to another team, the X-Men. For the X-Men's leader, Professor X, I choose Yul Brynner, who Stan Lee has said is the inspiration for Professor X. For the X-Men's fiery redhead, Jean Grey, I choose Maureen O'Hara. For the evil leader of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Magneto, I choose Boris Karloff, who is one of the best movie villain actors of all time. For one of Magneto's evil sidekicks, Mastermind, I choose Vincent Price, who is also one of the greatest horror movie icons of all time. It was also said that Vincent Price was the inspiration for Mastermind. And to round out the team with the Toad, I choose another horror movie icon, Peter Lorre. It has also been said he was the basis for Toad. So those are my picks for classic Hollywood actors who would be best to play these superheroes. Unfortunately, most of these actors have passed away, so none of these movies would ever happen, but it's just something to think about. It's just a what if. My name is Tony Beers, and I'll see you next time.